Good morning. Today's mini lesson is related to the skill of simplifying by combining like terms. The word simplify means you basically rewrite whatever you start off with in a much more simplified or more efficient way. So let's start off with an example like this, even though this is not really strictly math in front of us, but let's just see what we can do with this. Let's say I have a collection of objects. I have a bunch of circles, a bunch of stars, and triangles. Now I want to figure out what is it that I have. Well, one of the first thing you want to do is you want to just kind of regroup things together so that all your similar or like objects are together. So this is what we just did in the second step, whatever you want to call this. Um, so when it comes to mathematics, we still want to write this in a little more efficient way. So instead of writing four little circles, we want to write the number 4 and then a circle to represent that I have 4 circles. Because by counting, I really have just 4 circles. Now, same thing for stars. You have 5 stars. You count how many stars, and then you count how many triangles, and you can rewrite that as 4 circle, 5 star, 6 triangle. Now, the number 4 represents how many of those things you have, and so forth. And again, we can simplify this a little further by, say, instead of writing a little circle, a picture of a circle, a picture of a star, and triangle, we could just say, hey, letter C will represent circle, letter S will stand for star, and letter T will represent a triangle. So we can rewrite what we started with in a much more compact and efficient way of 4C plus 5S plus 6T. Now, I didn't really label these, but there are, all my letters represent objects. So in this particular case, T represents a triangle, and we call letter T, it's a variable, because sometimes it represents a triangle, in another case it could represent something else. Same thing for the letter S. S is a variable, because in this case it represents a star. C represents a circle, so there I have my 3 variables labeled, and the numbers in front of the variables are called coefficient. So I have 4 as the coefficient. That's the number in front of the variable, and it tells us how many of those variables we really have. So number 5 is a coefficient, and the coefficient is 6. Now it looks a little messy, but I think you understand what's going on here. Alright, my second. So the skill of simplifying by combining like terms really involves analyzing and seeing what kind of variables we have and combining the variables that we're allowed to combine together. Now, mathematical terms are broken up into 2 categories. Well, there's lots of ways of categorizing, but in this particular case, we're looking at variables versus constants. Variables is basically anything that has a letter that represents something by using a letter. Now, in this case, we have letter T, that's a variable X, Y. Well, this is for those of you in a little higher grades, 8th grade and so forth, you'll be seeing more of this, Y squared. Just make sure you realize Y squared is not the same variable as Y, even though we have the same base, but Y squared really means Y times Y, which is entirely different variable than just Y by itself. Same thing for X times Y. It's not the same. It's not the same as X or Y. It would be by itself. Alright, D is another variable. And what are the constants? Well, the constants are basically just plain old numbers. Now, it could be an integer, could be a negative number, could be a large number, could be a small fraction, or even could be written like this using the exponent, because this could be simplified as 5 squared is really just 25. But as you can see that there's no variable, therefore it's just a plain old number, plain old just a constant. Okay, now let's get to actual applying this to mathematical expressions. In the first example, I have 3 plus 9. Well, I don't have any variables, but I do have 2 constants, so therefore I'm allowed to combine just the constants. 3 plus 9 is 12. Well, so, that's an example you've been doing for years, so guess what, whether you realized it or not, but you have been applying this skill, combining like terms, for years. It's just that the terms you've been applying it to are just plain old constants. Okay, example number 2, 3 plus 9y. Well, I have a variable here, but no other cubes, so I really can't combine anything. Therefore, if I can't combine it, I can't simplify it, it stays the way the way it is. That is my final answer. I really can't simplify that. Alright, example number 3. Here I have a variable d with negative 2d, and right there is 4d. So I'm allowed to combine those two together. 4d minus 2d would become 2d. Now, what else is left is here I have a constant, and here I have a constant. Make sure you keep the operations or the sign in front of the constant with that constant. That number 8 has a negative sign in front of it, or a minus sign. So make sure you understand that really combination of these two variables is really 5 minus 8 is minus 3. So if you're not sure about this, please review one of my previous videos on the skill of addition and subtraction of positive and negative numbers. Okay, and the last one is, it looks more complicated, but guess what? It's the same skill. We are looking for, here's a variable c, variable c. Do we see any more variable c's? No. So I'm allowed to combine 3c and 15c is 18c. And I'll use a different color for the next variable. I also noticed I have different y's, or a bunch of y's I should say. While combining negative 12y and negative 4y, these two together will combine to be negative, that's, I don't know about that, minus 18, minus 16y, because negative 12y minus 4y is negative 16y. And for the last step, I have a constant 10 and constant negative 5. Again, the skill is easy, however you keep track of the sign in front of the constant, or in front of the coefficient for the variable. So minus 5 plus 10 is plus 5. And there you have it. That's a simplified version of what we started with. Okay, anytime you could pause, go back and